and IIT, Business Impact Accelerated.
So thanks for joining. Talk's going to be today about how to optimize the business impact, not only of content development, but also of the learning organization in general. A lot of talk going on about the economy. I think the general attitude we're taking inside NIT Cognitive Arts, and we're seeing some of our clients take too, is that this crisis is too good a crisis not to leverage. While there's a lot of pressure on budgets, I'll talk about that in a little bit, there's also a lot of opportunity to get some things done inside the learning organization that have organization-wide been difficult to do over the past couple of years. So this is a quote from an article from Amit Kapoor at Genpact on looking at the opportunity. And I highlighted some of the parts I liked about this. I think the current next year is going to give CLOs a chance to do some things that they've wanted to do. Now, Mr. Kapoor put down his list of things that they want to do. You may have yours. Some of these I think would be on my list. Some of these might not be on my list. But the fact of the matter is there's a chance in particular to get away with, boy, we have this training on the books because we've been asked to do this training. And instead there's a much larger chance to make sure that what we're doing is aligned with what the business really needs. It's a huge question of how do we determine how to actually operationalize that idea of alignment. And I'll spend most of my time on that today. How many people saw the talk with Dan Pink this morning on manga? Oh, okay, so some of you didn't. So I was hoping to get my manga artist in here in the last 2 hours, so I failed at that. I thought what was kind of funny about that is I have a 13-year-old kid, and while he actually is a big fan of manga, and he has a buddy who's a manga artist at 14 years old, I didn't get Dan's point about how that's going to save the publishing industry because my son goes online and gets it for free anyway. So much for the manga books. But imagine that put yourselves in the role of the CLO, right? Now, who here would be in a CLO role already? CLO or training manager? Got it. Okay. Or sort of in the performance consulting, content development organization. Oh, great. Okay. So put yourself in the CLO role, and now imagine that you, in my words, you get the call that a lot of people are getting, right around this time. So, in this case, it happens to be from the CFO of your company, generic name, National United Insurance. He says, look, I need you guys to figure out how you're going to take 20% out of your business. So, at the same time, I realize that there's going to be a lot of change in the business this year, and when there's a lot of change in the business, that's when the training and development function is really critical. We need you guys to help make that change happen. So I don't want you to stop doing anything that's going to be important to helping the business run, but I want you to take 20% out. Everybody else is getting the same function. Look forward to seeing how you're going to do it. Okay? And now, how many have actually had a call like this in your organization in the past couple months? The kind of good news, okay, a little bit, but not so much. Good news that a lot of people, according to the data we saw in that Dan Pink talk just before it, are not necessarily facing this. But this is where I think the idea of looking at this as an opportunity comes into play, which is how your learning function, how, if you're in the content development function, responds to this is not just going to impact how you spend the rest of the next 12 months, but is also going to impact how T&D is seen as a function within the business. One approach is to say, gosh, we did something, we cut 20%, we didn't like it, we felt bad about it, we ended up with the result, here's the result. That's going to continue to put training in the position of, these guys, we don't really know how much we need, they're able to take things out, it doesn't seem like they cry too much about it, boy. That's one approach. Another approach is to say, no, we just won't do it. And that approach probably isn't going to work either. Got to figure out how you can actually do this in a way that positions T&D is a stronger unit going forward. So if you sort of use that idea of visioning the future before you try to act on it, here's where you might want to end up. Imagine that it's now 2 months later, you're having a sort of hallway conversation with the CFO, and the CFO says things to you like, boy, I've heard so much from the stakeholders in the business units about how they really appreciated how you led them through that process. And they said, boy, I heard from them also they can really see now why that emphasis you've been putting on performance consulting, for example, which is something that a lot of training functions have been trying to push for a while, makes sense, and how they can see where you need to invest in that so they can have even a better conversation next year. boy, it's been great that you've been able to act as sort of a business partner and lead the businesses through making the cut. And even, maybe Wishnick thinking, and one or two of the groups is thinking they ought to take some money from another pile and give it to you because they can see how you haven't been able to give them the help you could with the cuts that they have been asked for. So you might want to think, boy, I'd like to walk away with this with some stars on my back. I was a good business partner. I was able to drive my agenda through this. I was able to be a team player, so I didn't turn my back on the organization when we really needed to make this happen. And I was able to raise the visibility of the learning organization. And I think these are all realistically things that we're able to use times like this to accomplish. Now, imagine that you got the call, you have a vision that you want to try to move towards. You go back to your office and you say, I have a group that I work with now. I'd like to get my team to work together with our business stakeholders. I'd like to make that vision reality. Now, given your current organizations, just sort of, let's try to do this. Put yourself on two camps. One is, I think our current organization could pull something like this off in a span of 6 weeks, on the one hand. Middle hand, maybe we could, maybe we couldn't. On the other hand, no, there's not a chance we'd be able to do this. Let me ask you to put yourself in those three groups. Okay? First, who thinks their training organization, training development group would be able to pull this off in 6 weeks right now? Great. Okay, couple hands, 3 hands. Who's sort of in the middle? Maybe we could do it, maybe we couldn't. Okay, couple more. Most of the rest. And who's saying where we are now? We struggle with this. Okay, then maybe one shy guy saying, okay, I'm going to rest my hand. I'll look around, make sure my boss isn't here. Okay. One of the nice things about the number of newsletters we're all on now is that you can look around and pick your favorite newsletter and see what advice you can get for how to try to accomplish this. Probably all a little tired of the newsletters about the state of the economy and how to react to it. I tried in preparation for coming down here to go look at a series of these things that have come out over the past month. What I found is that most of them focused almost primarily on some form of get rid of a formal training intervention, put in place an informal training intervention or rapid e-learning. So they almost entirely focused on sort of take a current activity and try to reduce the cost of it. What the sort of the broadest list I found was from Burson and Associates. So for those who aren't familiar, Josh Burson runs a group, Burson and Associates, which is a research group in the training and development field. They do a lot of good work. So I'm going to poke fun at Josh a little bit here, but I actually think he has a good list here. So this is Josh's list for the year on how to manage the current economy. Okay, so he has the first point, get over the fact that from the perspective of the business, L&D is an expense. Now, it goes on to say, we all understand this is an investment in people. We all understand it's an investment in performance and has a return associated with it. But this year, from the perspective of that guy, the CFO, anything that's not bringing more revenue in the door is an expense. Secondly, start measuring everything. In fact, not some things, everything. So that seems maybe a little bit hard to do, but the idea that we need some more information to make great decisions seems on target. Do something called manage the learning product portfolio. That seems right. Again, not exactly clear what that is or how to do with it. And then there's some things about changing how the deliverables we make. So the next 3, get a virtual classroom product so you can get rid of some live training and move something to online, get rid of some travel cost. Use some rapid e-learning so you can get rid of some content development cost. Embrace leaders teaching leaders, and consider coaching instead of training means, in fact, deliver less training, let people do it inside the organization with each other, which is an idea deep down I believe in very deeply. I think in the next year they're also actually being asked to make their own travel arrangements and do the work of the guy next door to them who's not there anymore. So the idea we're going to be spending a lot of time on this in the next year seems a little tough to me. Get realigned makes sense. Again, that's sort of like managing the product portfolio. How do we do it? And get going on informal learning and learning on demand. So again, sort of changing the blend that we're using for learning interventions. All right. Finally, get help. Right. So Josh, like us being on the service provider side, we're always put that little bullet down there.